day, everyone, and welcome to our Backstage Pass for September 9th, 2020. This is Arctiq broadcasting live to YouTube. My name is Aaron, and welcome to Microservices, Security, Visibility, and Release Management. So today we're going to be going over a number of topics with a few speakers and probably also a guest speaker. So I'll be your host today. I'm also one of the delivery sort of technological delivery consultants at Arctiq, and you'll meet a few of the others as well today. Who is Arctiq? We're a services-focused organization in Canada, focused on everything on the bleeding edge of cloud native. We work a lot with Kubernetes, various clouds like Google and Azure, and we have a partnership with F5, which has also been a fruitful one. Much like we're partnered with other clouds and vendors such as Red Hat and HashiCorp, we're also partnered with F5, and they kind of help us focus around the networking space. So I'll explain how this will go for today. A lot like our other Backstage Pass events, we're going to go through this quick introduction. You'll see sort of an intro to microservices through this, and this is definitely not going to be sort of a 101 introduction, but we're going to go through some topics that'll be pretty interesting, I think. A lot of technical presentation focused on demos for sure today. We'll have some real-time Q&A during the presentations that we can take in from YouTube. If you're sending us chat questions or interacting with us on YouTube right now, which you probably are, just keep in mind that there's a rough 7 to 10 second delay between what you write and when we see it, and vice versa. And then we'll try to reel in our special guest for some more sort of chatter about the ecosystem of F5 and NGINX, and we'll wrap up. So please subscribe to our channel and like if you want to see this kind of stuff from us more, and we'll get into that. So we're bringing in our friends F5 and by extension NGINX today to kind of be the focal point of this Backstage Pass event. And I'm just going to cover what we know so far. So we know F5 networks for their load balancers, firewalls that you might have on-prem or in cloud as appliances. And other parts of the community know NGINX as the web server turned proxy load balancer, cacher, etc. We know that F5 announced the acquisition of NGINX in March 2019. And it's been a little over a year now, and lots of things have been changing. So happy networks ever after, you would think? Well, pretty much. I mean, now they're diving into the really ever so popular Kubernetes networking space, and we're definitely going to cover a bunch of that here today, which is exciting news. So I'm going to also now just mention who's going to be talking today. So I'm going to bring in everyone to just say hello. We've got Marc, Jenn, and Hart. Say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
And they each are going to be covering their own focused topics around this space. And we're going to have, I think, some pretty good feedback from the community here as well. So I'm going to start by kicking this off for Hart. And Marc and Jenn, just hang tight. We'll bring you in soon. So Hart is starting with multi-cluster Kubernetes with NGINX, Ingress, and Service Mesh. Take it away, buddy.
Thanks, Aaron. So we're going to cover today on the NGINX side is we have a couple of Kubernetes clusters, which I'll dig into in a second. But we want to paint a picture around F5 and NGINX and integrations with Kubernetes. My focus at Arctiq, primarily around networking and automation. I've been delving in a lot more into Kubernetes lately, but those are my core focuses and background there. So I'm going to talk first of all about F5 DNS cloud services. For those of you that are familiar with F5, this will be like F5 Big IP DNS or GTM. They may be more familiar with on the Big IP platform from the past, right? Basically, what F5's done now is made this into a cloud service, right? So they're bringing in the DDoS and the white IP and the Anycast and all these great features that we're used to, geo availability, this type of stuff. But now it's in a managed service, right? So very easy to interact with, very easy to deploy, quick to deploy. And I'll dig into that stuff a little bit more as we go. But the big thing here now is everything is API based, right? So everything you're doing through the GUI, everything you're doing through your automation, your pipelines, that stuff is all talking to a declarative API in the backend. So very consistent, very easy to work as with code, this type of stuff, right? Quickly deploy apps, right? So don't so much have to wait for stuff to be provisioned anymore, right? You can have your own services within the cloud service and provision that as part of your application pipeline, et cetera. And as NGINX has moved into the fold, there's many other integrations that are possible. I'm going to try to highlight some of those today and see kind of how F5 and NGINX are working together with the different solutions that are now under that F5 umbrella. So quick overview of the cloud services, right? So basically this is the front end now for all the applications. Everything is orchestrated either through the GUI or through some sort of back-end automation, typically a pipeline or playbook or something of that sort. In the back end, you can still have your traditional apps, whatever Ingress that may be. In the case of this demo and what we're showing here, we're using NGINX plus Ingress controller running in Kubernetes clusters. So pretty straightforward there, but we're able to utilize familiarity with NGINX and obviously the availability there, and then tie in the automation around the cloud services for visibility, health checking, this type of stuff. So this is all I have for slides. I'll touch on some more of that stuff as we go here. But basically, I wanted to start off with a quick overview of the cloud services, right? So I was talking about the load balancer specifically, right? There's other cloud services that are available, such as authoritative DNS, et cetera. What the DNS load balancer is doing is basically becoming a secondary name server, right? So anything that you're sending to a specific zone or subdomain will be redirected using specific name servers to this cloud services here. So I'm just going to jump in quickly and show that. Right, so we see we're using this domain today that starts with GSLB, right? And I'm pointing it to the two F5 name servers, which are going to resolve up to the service. So basically anything that we put in front of that domain is going to be resolved here, right? And then we'll dictate how we're redirecting traffic through this portal. So this is the interface. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to dive into the actual service here. This is where you're going to start to see some stuff that you may be familiar with, working with some of the stuff I had previously mentioned, right? So, health monitors, pools, nodes, this type of stuff. And then endpoints. In our case, these are going to be the NGINX Ingress controllers that I was showing in that previous diagram. The nice thing about this global cloud services, we're getting into more of the regional thing, where we can easily switch traffic from different locations to different ingresses, this type of stuff, right? I'll dive into a little bit more here. And then the big thing here that ties in with what I was just showing on the DNS is the record names, right? So basically this will be the prefix of the DNS name, right? So if we quickly look at this one, there's two apps deployed here. Just quickly dug into that. I have an Arctiq app, which is a microservices financial application, and then a Giphy app, just random Giphy, right? You can see something like that here, right? And then we have the Arcadia Finance app here. So what we're doing with these load balancer records is we're defining how traffic is sent to them, what the actual domain name is that the traffic will be redirected to, and then the proximity rules. The proximity rules are the big thing in terms of where the traffic's coming from, where the traffic's going to. In this one here, we're forcing any traffic from anywhere in the world to this backend pool, right? So if we ever wanted to, if we had a bunch of entries in here in terms of proximity rules for different locations or global pools, this type of stuff, it allows us to easily move traffic around and redirect traffic for maintenance and testing and these types of things, right? We can see the Arcadia record name, right? So that's going to be prefixed onto the FQD that I was showing you earlier. So if we go up in here, look, we can see right? We're going to arcadia.gslb, and then GSLB is the zone we've created and redirected towards here. So pretty straightforward. There's some other stuff in here, such as caching and stuff for users, right? Just for performance sake. But I'll show you the Giphy one because it's a little bit better in terms of explaining that. So what we're showing here is a little bit different. So not all traffic, but traffic from like a European region is going to get directed to the backend pool in Europe, right? So pretty straightforward. We're able to say traffic based on geolocation databases, go to the closest Ingress controller, right, to serve up the app. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in there. Right now here we only have one entry, right? So we would really need to add something else in. But that's pretty straightforward on that side. Jump back here for a second and we'll show some stuff here. But the IP endpoints, so these are just the public IPs of the Ingress controllers, right? So if we quickly look at one of these here, right, so we're just going to look at our European cluster, right? We can see our NGINX Ingress load balancer public IP, right? And that's what's correlated back to right here, right? So anything ingressing on the European side is going to go there. Very straightforward. And then this is our Kubernetes cluster with the NGINX Ingress in North America. So basically just some pools with some IP endpoints there, and we're doing some health checking, et cetera, right? If we hop back to the main page here, right, we can see the health status of our service, right, which is key, and obviously it's active, right? There's other things we can do. When we make changes, it goes into a provisioning state, this type of stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about the beacon here, but basically just going to show you this is more of the visibility side, especially if you have like security pieces, DDoS, that type of stuff. You're able to create dashboards and et cetera in here to reflect that type of stuff. So I've just created some simple health checks and application mappings here, right, for the Arcadia and the Giphy app, right, just to see from a high level that they're online, right, just kind of a flow mapping here to do health checks and stuff like that, right? So let's jump to the dashboard view. Just going to get us a little bit better here. Right, so you can see kind of at a high level our application health, right? We only have 2 apps, so 2 are healthy, which is what we want to see. Right, obviously it's not a whole bunch of different apps, so it's kind of a little bit more general right now, but you know, as you add more in different states and stuff like that, maintenances, you'll be able to see that correlated here. So it's pretty good for some high level visibility as part of the overall service that we were talking about earlier. So there's some other stuff such as insights, et cetera. And this is all API based as well if you wish to orchestrate, you know, your dashboards from code, this type of thing. So I'm just going to do a quick quote forward here. I just want to show you some of those load balancer rules and how those are working. So let's do a quick forward here. I'm just going to jump into the NGINX dashboard view here real quick. So this is running on the Ingress controller, just to give you an NGINX Plus, sorry, Ingress controller, and just gives you some visibility on the traffic coming in, what zone it's managing, this type of stuff. I just want to use this for visibility. I don't really want to focus on this a whole lot. Obviously, there's other tools and stuff that can get us from there. So when we looked at the load balancer record for the Giphy app, I'll just bring it up just so we are on the same page here. Right, so we're saying for all European traffic, we're going to the backend pool, the European Giphy pool. Right, so we'll be hitting our Kubernetes cluster. We can see here we have a couple clusters. We can see that the Ingress is defined on both, right, for both applications. Right, we can see along here our North American one and our European one, right? So this is what we actually have deployed, 2 apps and both Ingresses in both regions, right? So everything's live right now. We can direct traffic wherever we want to. And then we can see our public load balancer IPs that are tied back to the IP endpoints here. Right, so I have a jump host on in the European region, right? So what I want to show is just it hitting that and the load balancer rule actually taking effect, right? So I'm going to hit the Giphy app from within that region. We can see here the counters incrementing in terms of requests, right? So what I did here was just do a port forward on the European controller, just so we can see this up here, as we generate more traffic, this type of stuff. And then the same thing here. If we hit the Arctiq app, right, we can see these requests incrementing, right? So we know that if we correlate that back to our load balancer rules, right, the Arctiq one is pretty straightforward. It's saying traffic from any location in the world, we're forcing it to the European ingress, right? So we have no traffic actually hitting the North American ingress right now. And just to quickly touch on the scoring, right? So the higher the number, the more preferred it is, right? So if we had a records such as like 100, right? And it matched the source and the destination, that would be preferred over this. So let's just go ahead and add a record here. So I'm gonna just force this traffic across to the Arctiq, but I'm going to make a higher score here. So I'm going to say traffic requests coming from Europe. We're going to send them over to North America. All right, we have a higher score, so this would be preferred in terms of a matching order. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and save this here. All right, and then we need to save again. So the big thing you want to see here is we're in an activating state, right? So it's going to take a little bit of time to replicate this information. And then we have the TTL, we need to make sure it's taken care of, right? So we have the configuration has been pushed out now, right? So if we hit the Arctiq application from a European IP address, we should expect it to ingress into the North American ingress controller. So just let me flip the port forward over right now. I'm just going to do a port forward on the NGINX controller on the North American cluster. This will make sure we're getting the visibility there as well. All right, so I'm just going to do a refresh here. All right, so basically you're seeing the same thing, but obviously we're attached to a different controller. Now we can see the requests are vastly different. And then I'm going to do a refresh here. Maybe start a new browser, just to make sure that session is fresh. Should be flipping over there. Might still be, we need to clear the DNS on this machine here. Open the Arctiq app here. Let's do a couple of refreshes here and generate some traffic. Let's go check our rules here. Remove this for now. Save this. Just want to try to highlight this without having to deal with any timeouts or anything of that sort. Be able to show you what I was mentioning here. All right, so we're still not seeing any traffic there. Let me see if I can just look for here. There we go. Yeah, sorry, it's just a caching thing on my end here. So now I'm from this machine that we're having ingressing in Europe, right? We're seeing it hit the North American ingress controller. If I continue to refresh that here, that type of stuff. All right, let's go here. I'm just going to log in and quickly show you what this looks like. All right, so you can see we have our microservices app, and the traffic is Where are we here at the dashboard? Sorry about that. All right, so we're seeing all the requests coming through there now. So, and consequently, the Giphy app is basically the same thing, except we're taking everything from Europe and redirecting it here. There's no other matching rule there. So really allows you to kind of say, you know, certain traffic, certain sources can only connect to these controllers, this type of stuff. And obviously what I was mentioning earlier about global pools, right? If you wanted, we could have apps that are geolocated. So, you know, one basically Ingress record in here, and then multiple backend clusters or Ingress VMs, et cetera, depending how you had that laid out. The one other thing I wanted to show here quickly on the code side. So basically, now that everything is API fashion and very declarative, right, we have our service JSON and our configuration. Actually, I'll show you in the GUI real quick. So if we jump in here, we can pull anything up as JSON, right? So this allows us to keep it in code and make changes from the code repository, use Git workflows, pull requests, this type of stuff, right? So we can ensure that people don't have direct access to the cloud services while the automation tool is able to orchestrate against it, right? So credentials don't need to be given out. Role-based access control is all handled through Git workflows, and everything is handled in code, right? Which is the way we want everything to go. So we have our service JSON here, which is basically the entire service configuration. What I was showing here is just basically the individual configuration, right? Not the overall subscription. This is just the configuration of the specific GSLD service that I was showing. Right, so we can see kind of that type of stuff in here. Our health monitors, a bunch of the stuff we were running through in the GUI. It's pretty well laid out, pretty easy to interact with, that type of stuff. So it's fun. So we're on the multi-cluster Ingress branch here. I'm just going to do a quick branch here. That's one. Do a quick Git workflow to highlight what I was mentioning earlier, right? So we're on this new branch now, this DNS TTL. And then I'm just going to make a quick change in the GUI here just to highlight what I was mentioning. Where are we? Perfect. So let's just take this pool here. So probably not one where you're working on. So let's just change this to a TTL of 60. Right. We'll commit that. What I've set up here, along with some of the other integration tool sets, is basically when we do a pull request and we merge into this branch, excuse me, that we're going to get a webhook fire off and update that via API. All right, so I'm just going to do my DNS TTL change, and I'm going to merge that into my branch for the multi-cluster Ingress. Right, I think the Tower session is probably still open. Right, so we can see I have Tower in the back end receiving the webhook. We're running a simple playbook that's going to take that configuration JSON in the repository. And it's going to push that up to the DNS cloud services. So we got our job here. Looks like it successfully ran. Right, so basically what we're doing is we're logging into the API, grabbing the token, which I'm printing out here just for the demo. And then we're updating the service configuration. So basically I'm taking that configuration JSON from the repo, and that's what we're using in the body of the put request into the API. Right, so we can successfully connect up to the API and make those changes. So pretty straightforward workflow, but allows us to control and audit everything through Git workflows, right? And everything in terms of comments and collaboration within Git itself. So pretty high level example, but think about an app team that can make their own pools, right? Their own VIPs, their own services, right? Which is at a high level what we've done here, and be able to handle all that on an app side, right? So they don't need admin permissions, right? They can have specific permissions integrated into their pipeline, which allow them to create services for their apps, etc., and basically be active right away globally. So nice little option there. Okay, let's flip back here and verify that change took place. So I believe what we changed here. I can't remember which one it was. It was the Arctiq one we changed. Let me check here. Yeah, that's what cool was. The Arctiq one there. Sorry, just making sure is refreshed here. This is the Arctiq pool. I'm just going to reload the browser here. All right, now we can see our TTL 60. Usually need a refresh of the browser. I was learning through trial and error there, but yeah, so we can see our members are healthy. We changed the TTL now, right, through that Git workflow with the tower and pushing up to the API. So we can see the different integrations that are possible here, having a declarative API, having everything web-based, but it really gives us a lot of control around global load balancing, traffic redirection, this type of stuff. So pretty flexible end-to-end, right? And it's nice that we were able to highlight that, the classic F5 services are, quite software-driven, quite API-driven now, but we can still tie in other NGINX pieces that have been around for a long time as they continue to be more complementary to some of the F5 stuff, right? So I think that's about all I have for mine. Pass it back to you there, Aaron.
Thanks, Hart. I just wanted to ask, well, I'll first off say that it's pretty nice to see that this is kind of a GitOps focused workflow, and uses the whole infra as code thing that we're all very adamant about. Is this kind of a low-hanging fruit that a network team could jump into, or would you say they might need to be intermediate or more mature with their automation chops to dive into something like this?
Well, it just depends on the Git maturity, right? Like it's straightforward as pull requests, this type of stuff. So if you're familiar with the JSON and interacting with the API, that part's pretty trivial. They made it super easy and very consistent. If you've ever automated against an API, it's very straightforward. But you just got to get used to the different layouts and some of the naming conventions that F5 is used here. But the documentation is fairly straightforward. And the nice thing is you can give different access levels to different teams. So it could fall under the networking team as a separate Git workflow, and then the app team may also have kind of their piece of their own Git workflow with maybe some less permissions or the ability to add pool members, this type of stuff, right? Maybe it's kind of split off that way, but you can kind of really do anything with the role-based access there, and you can control everything through Git. So we're not directly interacting with the API. We're having our automation tool sets and everything tied back to that.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, thanks for the presentation. We'll bring you back for Q&A. I'm going to reel in Marc and see him talking about securing applications with NGINX App Protect. Hart, go ahead and take a break. Hey, Marc.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Okay, just to save bandwidth, I'm going to drop my camera and just talk. Let's go. Thanks, Aaron.
All right.
So hi, folks. My name is Marc LeBlanc. I'm one of the consultants here with Arctiq. I've been with Arctiq just a little over 2 years, and during that time, my focus has been a lot involved with infrastructure as code, cloud architecture and design, and some secrets management. Today, I'm going to be talking with you about NGINX Arctiq. So what is Arctiq? Arctiq is a modern web application firewall solution that runs on NGINX Plus. The easy integration with NGINX is just one of the reasons why Arctiq is so appealing. What I'm going to be showing you today is just giving you a look at how NGINX Arctiq integrates with the NGINX Kubernetes Ingress controller and show you how quick and easy it can be to secure your applications. So specifically, what we'll look at is we'll take a quick look at the NGINX Plus dashboard. We'll look at a high-level overview of how we deploy Arctiq and NGINX Plus on Kubernetes. We'll do a look at deploying a really simple application and then do an inspection of a more complex application. And then finally, we'll secure both of them. So some precursors to the demo. Some of this I have gone ahead and pre-plumbed. I already have the NGINX Ingress controller running on Kubernetes. I already have a complex application, microservices, up and running. And I have my simple application running, but without Ingress. So we'll just take a look at how we tie that all together. Good news is I don't like slides, so I didn't make many. And that's the end of the slide portion of my talk. Let's pull up VS Code here. I hope you can read it okay. I'll zoom in a bit and make it bigger. All right, looks okay. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the deployment of NGINX Plus and Arctiq on Kubernetes. In order to do this, we need to build a custom container image. And the main reason we need to do that is so that we can package in the license files that are required for both Plus and Arctiq. Now, the nice thing that NGINX has gone ahead and done is there is a Git repo with all the Docker files, all the required application builds that you need that you can pull down. And then with a simple make command, you can build your image and push it to your respective container registry. Really kind of easy to figure out. Once you get your container pushed up to your container registry, there's some basic setup you need to do on your Kubernetes cluster with respect to creating a namespace, setting up the RBAC, and then there's some custom CRDs that you need to create. But we'll take a look at the CRDs in a moment. I'm going to just switch over to my GCP console where I have NGINX running. And let's just filter out some of the noise. I'm going to come into the workload. So we can see that I have the NGINX Ingress controller in Kubernetes up and running as a deployment. I just want to point out that you can deploy it as a daemon set, but for my demo today, I just chose deployment. If I come into the services ingress of my cluster, we see that there's an external load balancer up and running. If I try to hit this, I just get a 404 not found because it's not going to any default application. But it is in fact loading the NGINX error page. So another thing I'd like to show is even without anything loaded, you can still hit the NGINX Plus dashboard. Now, the easy way that I'm going to do that for today is I'm actually just going to port forward to that Ingress controller. And the way that I do that is I get the name of that pod that's running in my cluster. I'm going to port forward my localhost 8080 to 8080 on that pod. Wait for it to become active. Great. Switch back to Chrome. And here we are hitting the NGINX Plus dashboard. Now, like I mentioned, I've already got an application deployed. So if I drill down into the HTTP zones, we can see that it's loaded there. No traffic because we haven't tried to hit it. Drill into the upstreams. We can see some of the endpoints that are defined for this application. Cool. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to show how quickly that controller will pick up new applications. And now what I have is a similar Giphy app to what Hart showed you previously. I have a beer Giphy app that displays a random beer Giphy. Now it's running, there's a cluster IP, but it's not publicly accessible. There's not actually any Ingress defined. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So I bring back up my VS Code. And I've got my Ingress definition here. You can see that I've got the annotation for NGINX, so it'll get picked up by the controller. Let me just open up a new terminal window. We'll apply that. I hope this doesn't hang. I've been having some connectivity issues, but let's see what goes on here. Got my timeout on me. Give that a moment. That's okay. We can come back to that. We'll come back to that while my command times out. Okay, so when that does finish, let me just show that again one moment here though. So what this is doing is it's going to create a host Ingress with this domain for me. It's going to use the backend service name of beer on port 8080. When that does finally go through, oh, let's just see, it timed out now, it should work. No, it's going to time out again. Aaron, I don't know if you can hear me, but I don't know if we want to try to switch to the video maybe. Let me just see.
I can work with that if you want.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going okay, and until we try to apply this Ingress. Let me keep going, and then we'll come. Oh, there it goes. Disregard.
All right, sounds good. Keep going, man.
I apologize. I am having some connectivity issues to GCP for some reason today, but we can see that the Ingress was created. So what I want to do is want to switch back to the NGINX Plus dashboard and go into HTTP zones, and we see already it's picked that up. And if I hit that, sure enough, I get a random beer Giphy. Cool. Awesome. So that was a really quick and easy way to get an application to use the NGINX Ingress controller using NGINX Plus. Now that's all fine and great, but the talk today is really about securing your apps. So how do we get there? We have NGINX giving us really easy Ingress. We have NGINX Plus giving us a nice dashboard and some other features. But how do we secure this? So to secure your applications in Kubernetes with Arctiq, we create a custom resource definition called AP policy. And if I just clear
Hey, Marc.
Yes.
Could you zoom in that browser window just a touch?
I certainly can.
All right.
How's that?
Thank you. That is great.
Perfect. So under my object browser in my console here, I see that there's an object under arctiq.f5.com called AP policy. Now, right now, there's nothing in here, but we're going to go ahead and load an example in here. Let's just bring up my VS Code window again. And we have an example here using DataGuard. And people that are familiar with some of the F5 policies probably have heard of this one before. It's going to give us some protection around credit cards, can set up things like whether it should be an alarm, if it should be blocked. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. And hopefully this one doesn't time out as well.
Marc, we can give patience on this one. Just talk about what it's supposed to do in the meantime, I think.
Well, it's going to build this object. So once this loads, I will have an AP policy object called data guard alarm in the NGINX Ingress namespace. So just talking about some of the things that this specific policy, as it is on the screen, does, is we can see that if someone's trying to read credit card data, it's going to restrict that to the last 4 digits. It'll also protect US social security numbers as well.
I guess I'll throw in a little bit of Q&A there, Marc. Is there a possibility to add custom things for it to enforce against? In case we're not only concerned about those two?
You can customize the policy. There's a JSON definition that would exist outside of the Kubernetes space. As long as you map your YAML to the same structure, the same levels, you can customize the same thing that exists on these WAF signatures.
Very good.
I apologize for the connectivity issues, but rural internet, oh, there it goes. It's been created. Perfect. Okay, so if I come back in here and I refresh, we'll see our data guard alarm policy is created in the NGINX Ingress namespace, which is great. Okay, what I want to do now, and this might be really testing the connectivity, but let's see if we can get this to work. So right now, the state of our cluster is we have a couple of applications. We have a beer application. We have the Arctiq application that's split into an app3, app2, a main. None of them are secure. And I can demonstrate that really easily. If someone's trying to hit and do some malicious attack on my app, right now my application just says, sure, I'll run it, no problem. Let's see what happens. What we want to do is if someone's trying to do this, we would like that request to be blocked. And we're going to do that with that protect. But what I'd like to show is just what kind of configuration NGINX is building for these applications in the back end, just to give you more visibility into what's kind of under the covers here. Bear with me and we'll test some things. I'm going to try to log into this. So what we're going to do is we're going to log into the NGINX Ingress controller pod, and I'm going to print out the NGINX configurations for these applications that are being built. And we'll do a before and after of applying that security policy. We'll see the policy, what it looks like in the configuration, and then we'll do a test and see if it's blocking that request now. Okay, so I'm in the pod. So for any folks that are familiar with NGINX, everything is kind of loaded very similarly in this container. I have a conf.d and I have 2 configurations for my 2 applications that are loaded. One for the Arctiq Ingress object in the Arctiq namespace, and then one for my beer app under the beer namespace. So let's take a look at the beer one first. So again, this is almost identical to working with NGINX outside of Kubernetes. It's got the upstream defined, has the zone defined, ports that it will accept on, so forth. And it shows that the proxy pass is happening as well. Then if we display the Arctiq one, now if you recall the Arctiq app, I go back to my NGINX dashboard for a moment. There's a lot more going on. So in the config, that translates as well. I'll make this a little bit bigger. We can see all the upstreams being defined in this block, these blocks here. Same thing, where's listening, and so forth. And if we log into this Arcadia app, we can tell really quickly there's some financial information going on. There's some credit card information. You can send money around. It's an application you want secured. It's a long and short of what I'm getting at here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this Ingress section of my console. I'll do this two ways. We'll first do it on the console. We'll show you how to set up the app protect. And this one actually already has it enabled, other than it's pulling it from the wrong namespace. So the two annotations you need to add to enable the app protect module and the policy, there's two. The first one there, very clearly, app protect enable, it's telling NGINX enable that module for this application. The next one, the app protect policy, it's saying which policy to apply. But we're just going to change that because it's pulling it from the wrong namespace. I save that. And we can see that if we try that same attack here, it gets rejected. And if I come over here and if I reprint out that Arcadia Ingress configuration, we can see in here, it's defined the app protect enable on and the app protect policy to use. Now, I hope that demonstration kind of helps make it clear for any folks that are newer to Kubernetes what's going on under the hood. If you worked with NGINX, it's identical. There's just some operators going on in the back end to make this happen. Same thing. So I said we're going to do this two ways. So we still have our beer Giphy app, still insecure, still happy to serve up malicious scripts. What this looks like, and I bring up the right VS Code. So here's how it would come together if you had a YAML file to define this. Let me just exit out of my pod. Make sure it's pulling it from the right namespace. We'll see if this goes through a little quicker. This normally is much quicker. You don't normally have as much waiting as I've been doing today on these kubectl commands. It usually is more of a snap of the finger, but again, like I say, rural internet is what it is sometimes. All right. Let's cheat for this demo for today. So again, if I want to apply those annotations, the YAML file would have made this change for me, but in the console, you can drill down in. You can come over to the YAML, edit, and then I just look for my NGINX annotation, and I dump these ones in here. So same thing, we're telling it which policy to load, we're telling it to enable app protect. A thing of note, if you don't include the policy to load, but you have enabled app protect, it will load a default policy with some security functionality, but it may not be as fine-grained as what you would define in, say, the data guard alarm example. So let's save that. I'm trying to hit this again. And we see it's blocked. Take that off, and we are still happily serving random beer Giphies. So kind of in summary, we kind of saw some of the visibility we get with the NGINX Plus dashboard. We saw how easy it is to get things up and running with NGINX in Kubernetes, and even easier how easy it is to apply a web application firewall to your Ingress objects. Now, if we take a look, again, just in closing, at an application like the Arctiq application with those multiple backends defined, by applying the web application firewall on the Ingress object, all of those backend endpoints are secure. This is a really nice set of tools for your DevOps teams, your DevSecOps teams to collaborate together and move very quickly through your organization. And that's kind of what I had to talk about for today. I think it's back over to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Marc. That looked really good. And I think you also showed off a hidden feature of, well, not hidden, but an additional handy feature to have GCP give you live manifest editing from the browser.
Perfect.
So up next, we're going to bring in Jenn and Marc, you're going to take a break. And Jenn, hello, Jenn.
Hello, sorry. I have finding my mute button occasionally.
That's cool. So Jenn's going to be talking about release management with NGINX Plus. So there's definitely more to this than just basic NGINX. So I'm going to put your screen live here. Take it away.
All right. I kind of love going last. You know, some of what Hart has shown you and then some of what Marc has shown you, all of those components still play very heavily into what I kind of want to show you guys today. But, you know, I want to sort of talk about some of the more developer-focused stuff or the release management, traffic splitting, traffic shaping, those types of things. I'm going to focus on a couple of things. But, you know, just a really, really quick about me. My name is Jenn. Hi. My focus tends to be around microservices automation. And in this particular case, I have config management because that's also one of the things that I love. You know, I have a background in middleware and those types of things. So what I, like everybody else, I only have a couple of slides because I think demos are way more interesting than just looking at my slide deck. So I kind of like to say just like a quick little slide at the beginning is why I'm doing this. And you know, there's the difference between the sort of the standard Kubernetes ingress that you get when you just define an ingress object, right? And you have the community version of the NGINX ingress controller. With NGINX Plus, there's a lot more things that are easier to do, right? So things like traffic management, and in that particular respect, I'm talking about traffic splitting and also things around regex matching for traffic shaping. And I'm actually going to demo two separate types of traffic management. I'm going to do traffic splitting based on weight, right? So we want to ship percentages of traffic from one side of one portion of the app to the other portion of the app. I'm also going to do it based on, in this case, a cookie. Right. And so the other side of that, and this is where, you know, I like going last, I'm also talking about access control policies and the integration with App Protect. Right. And so you have all of these things that you can do. My demo is actually fairly straightforward setup. I'm sorry, I don't have any pretty pictures on mine. It's a little harder to demo cookie routing on with Giphy apps and those types of things. So mine is very much just an NGINX Hello server response to show you what pod traffic is coming from. And so the couple of things I want to talk about is this concept of virtual servers versus ingress objects, annotations, and then obviously the traffic splitting and those types of things. And so I'm going to just sort of get out of here. And what I want to start with is just showing you that what I have right now, right? So the sort of story behind the demo is what I have right now is I have a web app, right? It's answering me. You can see it. I have a stateful set. It's just web app 0, one pod. And what I'd like to do is test out a new version of this application. And so I'm using a lot of things. I'm using some tooling like Argo CD and those types of things to do some of the CD components of this. But let me show you where I am, and let me Control++. Aaron, can you full screen me, please? Thank you. Thank you. And so what I have in my Argo CD folder, right, is I have a couple of defined applications. The one that's already applied right now is just an application, a web app application. I'm just going to apply this. You can never type when anybody's watching, right? And I'll show you what this looks like, but essentially, I want to deploy a beta version of my app. And so if I go over here, you can see that I've deployed one, right? I've got a service, I've got some other things. I could do this through the dashboard as well, but you guys have seen the dashboard from a few things. But essentially, right, I have a little app. I've deployed a root version, but I am still serving traffic from this, the standard virtual server. And so what I would like to do now is I have a Git repository here. And what I have is I have a couple of virtual servers. So if I go over to this one, you'll see it, right? This is similar. This is a virtual server versus an Ingress object. And some of it is because I want to do some routing and some pattern matching. And so in this particular case, I have two upstream set. I have the web app, and then I'm setting another one called my beta for my web app. And so I've got some routes. And this is what I find super interesting when I'm using NGINX Plus. I have some conditions that I can match. So in this case, I'm going to say, if the user, a request comes in and it has a cookie that has a value of a cookie for the user that has value of beta, I want to serve that traffic out of my beta app. So I'm just going to commit this to my Git repository and move that over. So yeah, again, tools like Argo CD make it super, super easy that I can just push this thing, but right, so give it a moment to catch up. And give my Ingress resource a moment to catch up as well. I have my Ingress actually pushed as a separate project just to sort of make it easy. So I'll force a synchronization on that. I do have a beta app in here. And then the beta service and those types of things. So I tested this. I swear I did. I played with this quite a bit. Okay, so, it's still synchronizing. Apologies. That's why. We'll give that just a moment, but essentially what's going to happen, like I showed you, I quickly looked at this, but we can have another quick look at it, is that curl command that I'm issuing should send the request that I'm using up to the service that is the beta service, right? So that is finished in there. Why are you doing that? Okay. I think what I did is that one didn't update. Apologies. Just get rid of it and resynchronize it. Sorry about that. No matter how many times you test that, sometimes things just don't work the way you want them to. Try and get this very, very quickly, but it's back and okay. just going to verify my Ingress object and all of those things and make sure. Yeah, okay. So it did not catch up. So give it 1 sec here. You notice that I'm only still, for some reason, I'm only still catching this one. So let me very, very quickly just sort of work around this because that's kind of obnoxious. Apologies. I'm going to delete. I'll just get rid of this. Sometimes automation makes things a little less friendly. There we go. Oh, now what I was trying to show you, this is it here, right? So if I do a curl and my cookie is has that standard user is equals beta, I get the beta app version. And if I do this without that and just curl my regular endpoint, you'll notice I'm getting a response from just my regular application. So that's one way. So in this case, you know, I've wanted to make sure that I have a bunch of users that are ready to test this, and I keep doing this while simultaneously having no impact on my users that are coming in through the standard front end, right? If you see this, I have a bunch of requests, they keep updating, and everybody is still going over to this traffic. But at some point, you're satisfied that this is acting the way that you want it to, and so you're going to want to potentially just start shifting traffic over. And so the other virtual server that I have in here is one that is simply weight-based. And so you'll see in this case, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to start shifting. Now, this is a very aggressive shift. I'm going to start sending 80% of my web-based traffic over to my beta app now and still leave 20%. I'm assuming normally you would do this the other way, but I wanted to show you this. So I'm going to not go into Argo CD again. So I'm just going to very quickly, this isn't generally the way you would do this. You would do this through automation tools, but I'm going to delete. I'm going to apply my weight-based one. And if I go over to my browser now and over to my application, once this applies, I should start seeing most of my traffic coming over to my beta. And, you know, that's the thing that I mostly just wanted to show you was just the sort of traffic shaping. I know that you can do this in other ways, but with other tools, but I very much like the way these virtual servers, because as some of my background, NGINX makes more sense to me in certain cases. So just as a quick sort of look at it, right? I'm still setting my upstreams, and I'm just adding this. I have one other one where you can sort of shift this across multiple namespaces. But in this case, you know, I could now edit this and just sort of change this. And all of my traffic should now be going over to my, most of my traffic should be going over to my beta app now. And that's all I really wanted to show was just sort of some different ways of doing it, right? There's annotations in some ways and those types of things, but doing it through the cookie matching or just sort of weight-based shifting is where I find that NGINX has the value. And with that, Aaron, if there's no any comments or questions from the audience, I think I can send this back over to you. And
sure. I just wanted to quickly ask it, this type of workflow, should this be something that you might suggest goes directly to the project ownership team? Like the project that owns that web app, should they be the ones who implement this kind of thing, or should it head out to like a infrastructure or DevOps team? Is this something attainable like that?
I think it depends on what the development organization's workflow looks like, right? In this case, I'm using CD tooling to do it. And so I would suggest that it goes into this type of tooling. And when they're ready, it's a combined effort, I would say, between the, development or a DevOps organization with the development organization to do that shaping and those testing. Because in my case with that beta cookie, I would have set through login groups and those type of things through some sort of single sign-on to say these users, internal users, are my beta testers for this application before I'm ready to ship it over. So you would still end up using your DevOps or your infrastructure team to help do that component.
Right. Okay, fair enough. All right, thanks, Jen. That was a really good demo as well. We've definitely learned a few things I didn't know before. So in the spirit of doing Q&A at this point, I know we may have some questions to get to, but what I want to do is reel in everyone from before, so Marc and Hart and everyone. And then I'm also going to reel in Alan Murphy from NGINX, or he might also say that he's from F5. And let's do some Q&A, guys. Really just some discussions. We might give you some easy questions or some tough questions, Alan. So welcome to the live stream.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us what you do at NGINX?
Yeah, so I'm a product manager for some of our microservices solution that we're building in NGINX. As you guys know, and you mentioned, part of F5 now, but have been with NGINX for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was actually at F5 for 10 years. So just came back to F5. But just a sole focus on NGINX microservices solutions.
Very good. And here we go. We got your businessy mugshot up there. There we go.
Yeah, this one's better. This one feels more.
Yeah, it looks good. So we're gonna have to get a bunch of those NGINX sweaters somehow.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're cool. They last forever too.
And so based on you mentioned to me earlier that you were going to watch a stream. Thanks for watching the demos earlier. So it's good to see this stuff happening, and I remember and pretty much know NGINX from working primarily with the open source tools. So it's good to see this be very enterprise focused. A lot of the customers we work for don't necessarily stick with the open source the entire time, and they go to the enterprise focused thing. And it's a good thing to see the focus on Kubernetes as well. Do you think anything? It's probably an obvious answer, but what is it about Kubernetes that seems like a good fit for the NGINX effort here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So I think the first thing is just the form factor of NGINX as such a small footprint software load balancer, but still having the enterprise class features for high availability, advanced traffic management, as Jen showed. But Kubernetes in general, it's an opportunity for us in that load balancing space to take advantage of some of the additional features that we have in NGINX Plus for more advanced things like traffic splitting, weighted distribution, being able to choose load balancing algorithms that were designed for container environments like least time or random of two choices, and then combine those with the demos that we saw from Marc and Jen. It's just a really good way to bring all of those concepts together, but just focused on container availability, containerized application services in that native environment.
Good stuff. Yeah. And Hart also told me before the stream that he has some previous, specialty in this area, which he does. So Hart, I know you had a couple questions for Alan as well. Just jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on some service mesh stuff, right? Throughout these demos, I think a lot of this stuff's happening in the back end. People may not be aware, but obviously service mesh is coming pretty prevalent in the Kubernetes and microservices world. And just kind of wanted to know like what NGINX is doing on the service mesh side.
Yeah, happy to talk about that, Hart. And you absolutely nailed it. It's that the features that are there and exist from the Kubernetes space and what Kubernetes gives us for layer 3, layer 4 networking is awesome. It's solid. It's complex. As everybody probably knows, there are so many tools that you can choose from when managing layer 3, layer 4 networks in Kubernetes. So bringing something like NGINX Plus into that space for layer 7 awareness and being able to do it with orchestration. And that's kind of a great setup to talk about NGINX Service Mesh and what we've been building for the past couple of months in that space. And the idea is to create a service mesh that one focuses on data plane first, so it takes advantage of all the NGINX Plus goodness that Marc walked through with Ingress and north-south traffic, all the stuff for east-west that Jenn walked through for traffic splitting and traffic management. Bring all those features to the data plane so that we can do things like auto injection with sidecar management, so devs don't have to worry about it. But then also bring in the orchestration piece. And I think what's interesting about the service mesh market is that there really isn't a control plane that exists today that's focused on an intelligent data plane, one that's really L7 forward. So what we've done is we've built a control plane that does all of the orchestration and Kubernetes integration for NGINX Plus data plane. So yeah, we've been kind of quiet about it, but that's what we've been working on, and happy to start talking about it.
It's a bold claim. I can imagine there's a bunch of open source developers right now saying, hey, we do that too, but well, we don't know about it yet, so we'll wait and see. I like it.
Yeah, totally fair. I'm a software person, so I know that there's a software tool for everyone, and all software has its place and is good. And it's just a different kind of way to look at why somebody wants to do traffic management in Kubernetes. And for us, all we're doing is taking advantage of all the stuff that we do really well and we know really well in the NGINX space, in the F5 space, and just bring in that more intelligent data plane. Not to disparage any other data plane that exists, they just do different things in a different way.
Fair enough.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I think you touched a little bit on the components, but would you be able to dive a little bit more into some of the components around that NGINX service mesh and maybe highlight how those are a little bit different than what maybe used to in other service meshes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen and see if I can grab PowerPoint. Just like the others, not a slide fan, so it's in good company. I'm happy to do that. I'm actually going to share my desktop, so you're going to see a little bit of feedback for 2 seconds here. So
it's okay,
I apologize
we'll pull it up.
for that. Okay, cool. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Oh, good. All right, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've been focused on highlighting the value of NGINX Plus for data plane and being able to take advantage of all the stuff that can happen in that space, in a containerized space. And the list is long. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff that we can do with traffic in a container with NGINX Plus. So I'll kind of gloss over that, maybe leave that for a deep dive later. But I want to come back to Ingress controller as well and kind of highlight some of the things that Marc mentioned. But specifically for control plane, we did go basically to the back to the books from the ground up and built a whole new control plane that's solely focused on managing NGINX Plus sidecars for data plane. It's a really lightweight control plane. It's focused on injection, so sidecar management, identity management using Spire and Spiffy, and then integration with open source tooling like Grafana, Open Tracing, Prometheus, and then the ability to enable and disable those features if you need them. If you already have Grafana or Prometheus, then you don't need to use ours. Great, just point our control plane at your install, and we'll just push our metrics there. And then we've also been really aware and kind of really deliberate about building to mesh spec, or what exists today. So everything is built to SMI spec for metrics gathering, for access control, for traffic splitting and management, to give it that full open source integration that all of our customers love, even those that are just sticking with open source, kind of being able to work in their environments as well. So that's control plane. And then data plane, it's all NGINX Plus everywhere. We're using NGINX Plus sidecars for east-west traffic management. And then we can fully integrate NGINX Plus Kick, the same exact stuff that Marc went through in his demo. We integrate that with service mesh. So we can treat Kick as a mesh participant, which means it participates in MTLS access control. But it also means that we can configure all of the access rules and the identity rules through the mesh. So you don't have to manage them in 2 different places. Kind of springboarding off what Jenn was talking about pipeline development. You can do all that through the mesh so that Ingress becomes mesh aware, and then all of our sidecars know that Kick exists and Kick is functioning. And then the last thing I'll kind of mention is that we're using Kick for full ingress and egress. So if you have any mesh component that's being managed by an NGINX Plus sidecar, that sidecar knows if it's allowed to request an egress resource. And if so, it knows that that resource needs to be MTLS through Kick. So it's a pretty straightforward data plane, but it's also really feature rich in that NGINX Plus space for both north, south, and east, west.
Yeah, thanks for that high level. I think it's kind of lining up with why you guys went down that road. Maybe just quickly touch on like some of the key differences or kind of why you went down this road from separate from an Istio perspective.
Yeah, so it really was data plane first. It's this idea that the data plane matters. And as you mentioned, Hart, there are, or maybe it was Aaron, I apologize, but there are a set of sidecar proxies that exist in the market today, and they do what they do well. But generally, they're more focused on layer 4 to layer 7, if I can say it that way. So we wanted to build the mesh and that differentiation solely on the data plane because we can with NGINX Plus. And it was one of those things where we worked a few years ago on a project where we integrated with Istio so you could replace Envoy with NGINX and NGINX Plus. And the more work we did on it, the more we looked at kind of what's the right fit for the right job, what use cases are we trying to solve, what do customers need to do, what do they want to do? And it came down to, we really just want to highlight NGINX Plus and give customers the opportunity to use those tools in a service mesh environment. So we got to write our own control plane. So the differences from other service meshes proper are data plane, so the ability to use NGINX Plus for north, south, east, west. That full integration of north, south, and east, west traffic is one thing. And then a control plane that's just focused on high availability, high volume Kubernetes traffic management. So it's just, let's just all think of it as NGINX Plus, right? That's the value add. That's kind of the secret sauce, and everything else around it is just built to enable those tools.
Yeah, the integration is obviously a big portion of it and really shows through. Kind of managing everything under the NGINX Plus umbrella will be pretty nice versus having to integrate with other tool sets. But yeah, it looks like the performance piece is going to be interesting. Definitely looking forward to getting hands on that and testing it out. We've done quite a bit of service mesh stuff, with clients and on our own and labs and a lot of events and stuff. So I'm sure there'll be a few people itching to test it out and kind of see how it goes. But just lastly on that, in terms of other integrations or management of service mesh components, et cetera, is that going to be tied into other things like controller, et cetera? Maybe if you could just quickly touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the longer term plan is to have full integration with NGINX controller. First, it'll be for visualization, so the ability to visualize services in real time. So what's going on in NGINX service mesh, what services is the mesh managing, what sidecars are associated with which app pods, and things like security policies. So what security policies are they currently using? And then down the road, we'll have more of the management plane functionality. So the ability to define policies with controller, push those down into a format that the mesh can understand. So just the standard CRD, for example. So that is coming. But on the kind of flip side of that coin, NGINX being good open source stewards and wanting to remain open in that community, there's also a huge opportunity to integrate with other kind of Kubernetes type tooling or other monitoring and monitoring tools that somebody might be using. So as I mentioned, if a Prometheus environment already exists, then you can plug the mesh directly into that. So we can feed metrics there. Open tracing is another good example. So open tracing support for Zipkin and Jaeger. Datadog has a great open tracing library that we can plug into. So still continuing to support the open source environment and the open source users, so that there will be options for either the enterprise who wants to go controller or the open source route who may want to use tools that they already have in their environment.
Yeah, awesome.
It's good news.
Thanks for the highlight there. It's provides some good insight to what you guys have been working on, kind of some of the visions there. So it's definitely helpful. And as I said, looking forward to testing it out.
Cool. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for letting me join. Like I said, it was really cool to come in behind Marc and Jenn, because Marc, your demo of Ingress in general, but specifically with NAP and the ability to bring in security at the edge, is great for us because we can treat that component as a participant in the mesh. So you highlighted half of what I normally talk about with service mesh. So thank you for that. And same for Jenn. The other half of service mesh, the data plane lever, is all traffic management. So your demo of traffic splitting and weighted distribution is spot on with what we do. So support for weighted distribution or canary or AB or blue-green. and then managing that all through CRDs. It was the absolute perfect setup. So thank you to you two for giving me such a nice entry on Service Mesh. It was awesome.
He's giving us all these compliments. It's like he doesn't want any tough questions now.
Well, what was that? Sorry. No, just kidding.
I don't want to give him any tough questions because he's given all these nice words. This is
No,
great.
hit me.
Don't have to. It's okay. But like, if someone wants to kick the tires on this, is there like a trial or a free version of some kind they can jump into right off the bat, or what is there?
Yeah. So so next week NGINX has its now annual sprint conference. We used to have NGINX Conf, if anyone's familiar with that. That's been our conference, our user conference for the past couple of years. But given the environment, we're going all virtual, and it's now called NGINX Sprint. At Sprint, we're going to be talking a lot more about these microservices tools and what we're deploying with the mesh and when it's going to be available. But short answer is, yeah, we should have something available, released in full GA towards the end of the month, maybe in October, give or take. But yeah, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have this available to anybody who can start grabbing it and playing with it. And very selfishly, I'm so looking forward to the feedback and what, people like you guys and our customers and people who are really either new to Service Mesh or really experienced in Service Mesh can kind of come back to us and say, okay, we get this data plane approach. We like this, or, here's some feedback on where we can kind of focus.
And one more, I think, F5 acquiring NGINX is not as humongous as something like an IBM Red Hat, but how do you feel the acquisition has affected NGINX in any way? Either way, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll give you the personal answer first, because given my history at F5 beforehand, I think it, in all sincerity, makes 100% sense for both parties. F5 is, as you guys know, as other people know, the market leader in the application delivery space in general, but really focused on that high volume, high bandwidth area. And NGINX coming in, we're able to bring that really small footprint, really agile software application delivery component. So it makes total sense. And then vice versa, our space prior to the acquisition was really DevOps focused. So we talked to a lot of NetOps people, or a lot of NetOps groups from the NGINX side, but it was really more about, well, how do we enable DevOps teams? How do we enable DevSecOps? How do we enable what we call Big Ops, the operations arm of DevOps? And we really weren't kind of getting that kind of edge up environment. And that's what F5 allows us to do now, is to do things like build these edge security tools with Kik and NAP. That's the perfect integration on paper, and then just kind of theoretically or theologically, it's the perfect integration between F5 and NGINX. It's security at the edge of a container. It's awesome. So I think it's good for the market. I think it's really, really good for us. And just selfishly, in the NGINX BU side, it's given us so much cool kit to play with. And NAP is, again, the best example for that. So far, so good. Really excited.
This is good. Does anyone else want to bug Alan with any questions or anything?
I had one, but I'm assuming I'm worried that I'm asking some information that's not quite yet ready. So if that's the case, that's the case. Around the service mesh and some of the data plane stuff. So one of the things I really, really liked about being able to use the advanced stuff from NGINX Plus is all of the custom annotations and snippets and all of those things. Is that still something, is that something that is going to still be able to be used with the sidecars and all of those things, or is that just on the you know what I mean? Like some of the beautiful features, the custom snippets and annotations, and some like the traffic listeners and some of the other things I've been playing with over the last couple of weeks. I assume a lot of that stuff will enhance the service mesh, or.
Yeah. So first of all, definitely a question on the table. So thanks for asking. Happy to kind of talk about it. So what we've done, and I don't really have a slide to show it, which is probably okay. But what we've done is we've taken the data planes, so north, south, and east, west, and we've somewhat divided the management plane of that functionality. So to answer your question, if we're talking north, south, support with Ingress controller, all of those annotations, all of the Ingress features that you may be familiar with or that Marc highlighted, all of that stuff is still there. The management component from the mesh side comes from us telling Kik, hey, if you're going to create a new Ingress resource that matches this criteria, meaning it needs to be meshable, then you need to integrate with our identity platform. You need to be able to consume client certificates. And then we make that connective glue. That's the part that we do in the mesh. all of the kick features, annotation snippets, all still fully supported for north-south. And that includes for egress as well. On the east-west side, it's a little different. We do support all of the traffic management feature sets that you talked through, and then everything that you need to make sure traffic can intelligently go from service A, pod A, to service B, pod B, for example. And those are done through CRDs. But we haven't exposed 100% of the NGINX Plus feature set through those CRDs for east-west traffic. So as we continue to push the or bring the product to market and work with our customers, and we identify what those key features are, like say, for example, maybe somebody wants to use JOT authentication, or they want to set custom headers or custom cookies only between service A and service X. As we get that kind of feedback, those will then become CRDs that you can apply to the mesh.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. But out of the gate, and just
Marc?
Sorry, one last thought on that, Jen. Out of the gate,
Yeah, sure.
the CRDs that we will be supporting are all around load balancing and traffic splitting. So AB, Canary, weighted distribution, all those CRDs are supported out of the gate.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marc or Hart, if you have any other questions for Alan?
I'm good. It's been super informative.
Great. Sounds good. Alan, thanks for joining us. This was great.
Yes, super cool to talk to you guys. And again, super cool to come in this environment after those demos. And I will say, Marc, I empathize and feel your pain. We use GKE in-house. All my demos are GKE. And yesterday was a really tough day for GKE demos. So I don't know what's going on with them, man, but I feel your pain. So understood.
Sounds like they got to scale the stuff that we scale on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, this was good. Demos are great, and thanks for thanks for joining us here, Alan. And say thanks to your friends at NGINX. And we're looking forward to all the other stuff that comes out of NGINX and F5 in combination. So with that, I'm going to bring us back to the first slide here, and everyone have a great day. This has been Backstage Pass, Microservices Security, Visibility, Release Management, and F5 and NGINX with Alan Murphy. Everyone, take it easy. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.